to another episode of Let's Talk Deer, brought to you by Grandpa Ray Outdoors, owned by Mr. John O'Brien. John's a Midwestern guy. He's around the Madison, Wisconsin area. He's been an agronomist for over 29 years. So he knows seed, he knows soil, and he knows what white-tailed deer need. John has a large seed company, Grandpa Ray Outdoors, but also he's in educating. He's one of the best educators, seminar, platform speaker, communicator for soil, water, and cover. The soil brings the food, the water hydrates, and the cover keeps them safe. So that's what whitetail needs. So any questions at all about seed, go to grandparrayoutdoors.com. Let's Talk Deer does receive compensation from Grandpa Ray Outdoors for mentioning them on my show. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Deer with Bruce Hutchin, the host. And I'm joined tonight with Western Contours host, Guy Duplantier. Guy, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we've been hanging out, folks, almost an hour already, so we're pretty wound up.
Yeah.
We've been talking about a mutual good friend, Michael T. Merrill, and I was fortunate enough to do some card pulling for him last year, and he was touching a 360 bull, and Guy knows Michael, so we're talking about him, and we were talking about on Facebook Live earlier, which you can see on my Facebook Live page, about hunting is about the journey, and I was telling Guy how in my younger days I was very selfish. I solo hunted, 80% of the time. There were some places I had to have a guide because it was a wilderness area, or they deemed that you had to have a guide, so I had a guide. But having said that, Guy, what is it, that you found in your life that makes hunting so special?
Oof. Again, man, for me, it's just a beautiful experience, man. It is me pitting myself against everything that is in the woods or on the mountain, and being humbled every step of the way. I think that the ability to self-reflect, and we feel like we're 10 feet tall a lot of times, and you get on the mountain or you get in the woods and you realize how minute you really are. And then just being able to, for the lack of I mean, it's not a lack, to revel in God's creation, and actually be a part of something that we've been pulled away from, with all our technology and all our comforts and things like that. I yearn for it, man. I long for it year round, every day. The only thing that I put up on the pedestal, is my family, my wife and my kids. And with hunting, man, it's just, that really is a second in my life, because I feel like it makes me a better person, when I go out in the mountain and I get that, that butt kicking, and I'm brought back down to reality of how small I actually am.
Because we talked earlier about it's just not the kill. It's not taking field to plate and having the harvest, but it's in the journey that you realized, like you said, 12 years ago, and you could say the exact spot where all of a sudden you had this revelation or a moment when you went, holy fright, yeah. I'm a hunter.
Yeah. I'm a hunter, and I'm an inch big out here. It is, and I don't know, people may chop at me a little bit for it, but we say it's about the table fare a lot of times, or filling the freezer. And yes, that's part of it, but I think that that's a small part of it. I think that going out there and chasing that experience and spending the time with loved ones and friends, and then just being out in nature and reconnecting with our spirits, I think that's where it's at, man. I think the table fare is a cherry on top. But we can go into the woods and not harvest anything and still walk out of the woods, with that experience being the trophy. No matter, you talk about a hunt, right? And like you collect the rocks. You got a rock. It doesn't matter that you shot a 190-inch mule deer or a 350 class bull. you can look at that rock, and that rock takes you right back. So that tells you right there, it's the experience part of it. It's reflecting on those experiences and the lessons, that humbling that comes with it, and just being out in God's creation, that is paramount in that entire deal.
And a lot of people don't understand that, and I gave up trying to help people to understand it a long time ago, because I don't have the ability. I'm not eloquent enough, and there's some great writers out there, and I'm going to let them do it, because it comes back to me. I know every time, and you talked about it, every time I went out solo, especially Unit 2 here in Colorado. Back in the day, folks, you could hunt Unit 2 without waiting 21 years. And I would bow hunt there, and I'd stay at the Maddox cabin at about 10,000 feet, and I'd have elk bugling all around me all night. And then I'd get up in the morning, and I'd go hunt. And it was just unbelievable. After, I was fortunate, to have enough time, so I'd hunt in either 5 or 10 day stints, and I might hunt with that tag 20 days. And it was like, oh my goodness. And I come back, and it's like my wife says, I love when you go, because I'm a different person. Everything has been cleansed, and I call it cleansing, yeah. But I was cleansed of all the worries and all the things that we carry, and I was working and flying all around and doing this and doing that, and I worked 60, 80 hours a week. But because I worked so hard, I had this time that I could go, and that was better than spending $1,000 sessions with a shrink. You couldn't replace it. You just couldn't replace it. And you've had the same situation.
Absolutely, man. So we talk about the solo experience, and as we were discussing it earlier, you have a lot of revelations about yourself when you're solo. You realize how scary you are when it comes to things that go bump in the night. But it's pitting yourself against those things and facing what you feel like your shortcomings are that give you that growth. And I don't think, and I'm not trying to belittle the camaraderie and that experience with friends and family in the woods, but I don't think that you can compare going out there, one-on-one with nature and being in God's creation. When I come back, and I told you that earlier, I know that I'm a better person when I walk out of the woods, when I get off the mountain. And if you say there's a bull down there or there's a deer down there, I'm your huckleberry. I'm going to look at it, and I'll think about it for 2 seconds about how bad it looks and how bad it's going to hurt and what could happen. It's about 2 seconds if I give you that, but I'm going. Whether or not I've seen it or not, you can fool me every time. I'm going. And I'm to the point where I don't hunt one area. I don't hunt one zone. I look at a spot on the map a lot of times, and I go, man, that looks like the spot. I'll go scout it. And if it's steep, deep, and nasty, that's probably where I'm going to hunt. And it doesn't matter if I come back with something. Of course, I love it. I want to notch my tags, but I'm really after the betterment and the experience at this point. Now, when it comes, I'll qualify that a little bit, Bruce. When it comes to elk, I've been getting my butt kicked. So with the elk, it's about the horns. I've been getting my butt kicked by the elk. So, yeah. But, yeah, man, I can't say enough about just getting out there and just realizing, that I'm just, I'm minute, man. I'm at the bottom of the food chain out there. And just let's get through it and suffer a little, the suffering part of it. Like I said, if it's steep, if it's deep, if it's nasty, if it's shale filled and it looks like it's going to hurt, that's my hunting hole.
When I talked to you earlier, a lot of my listeners, 90% of my listeners are from the Midwest. They're whitetail hunters. And, they dream, like my buddy, he's 50 years old, and people said, you're going to Colorado, and it's hard. It's not easy elk hunting with a bow any place. Right. And Colorado, if you get some really nasty stuff like you're talking about, it's unforgivable. You can't screw up because it's going to hurt you. But saying that, you live in California, so you have to make plans to hunt Colorado. How do you do that? What advice do you have for Midwestern hunters who say, "Hey, I want to hunt the West. Maybe it's Arizona, maybe it's New Mexico, Nevada, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming." So there's, those are the major states. But how do you go about deciding, one, to go, two, afford it, and three, how do you plan?
So I think the first mistake that folks make when they say that they want to come out west and hunt is they put it off for far too long, right? It's always this thought process of, man, I'd love to do it. Man, I'd love to do it. All I can say about that is, guys, ladies, what are you waiting for? Get out west, get the hunt. If it's a budget thing, then budget. You can get a over the counter non-resident Colorado tag for around 650 bucks. Do the math. It's a few bucks a month. You do have some gear that you're going to have to switch. A lot of our Midwest and back east folks down south, we're doing a lot of blind, a lot of tree stands. So there are some gear necessities that they may not have, but on that end, why not go on a guided hunt? Where when you're in a drop camp, or you're sleeping in a guide's trailer, that gets a little bit more expensive. But again, it's planning and budgeting for it. But I think a lot of folks put it off, don't chase it, and by the time you do, if you're 55, 60 years old, and then you're looking back going, man, I should have done that in my 20s. How many more years do I have, that I could do this? Don't put it off. That's the biggest recommendation that I would have is get out here and get after it. It's not, you're going to get your butt kicked. You come out west and you don't know what to expect. Start walking, but just get out here, get out here and do it. It's not that difficult. It's not that expensive where, you can't plan for it for a season. I mean, what does that math come out to, Bruce? 650, 700 bucks.
$50 a month for the tag.
Yeah,
that's 600. You need $1,000 to $1,500 because you are going to have to get some optics that you might not have. Your boots better be, mountain boots, not, rubber boots that you walking back to the stand. So you need that type of equipment. Plus, you need a good pack, unless you have a guide. And I like what you said because you can get a drop camp archery hunt, the horseback in. You'll be in an area that far enough you'll be away from the people that, even though they're archery hunting, they're not a mile, 2 miles from the road. No, if you pick the right drop camp, you should be 3 to 5 miles from. So you should be away from the people. And then it's a learning curve. You have to learn the drainages. You have to learn the areas where the elk live, because if it's 10 square miles at any one time, those elk are only in 1 square mile of that drainage, of that area. That they're only in 10% of the time in one area.
And I would agree to a point, right? But I think that's one of the things, the limiting factors is people look at it. And I think with all that, it becomes pretty intimidating, right? Oh, I got to learn a drainage. I got to do this. We have the ability to e-scout, which is great. But again, I'm going to take it right back to what I said, Bruce, is get out here. How are you going to learn? You know what I mean? You can't learn to hunt elk or mule deer sitting in a whitetail stand. It doesn't happen. You got to get out here and do it. And if that means coming out, even if you came out and you got, a less expensive tag, if, say you pull a bear tag, a non-res bear tag in Colorado or one of these states, it's not going to cost you as much. Even a deer tag. Well, some of the deer tags do get pricey, but come out here for one of those hunts, get a lay of the land, learn what the drainages look like. And a lot of it, right, is you start talking about drainages, and don't even start talking about calling and what calls to use. And there's all this stuff that I can see, especially with the amount of information that's out there. It's got to be intimidating for, a new hunter or someone that is coming from Midwest or back east to get into. It's so much that it's mind boggling. And then what do you believe and what do you listen to? folks, get out here, hunt the West if that's the dream. Don't put it off. It's the most beautiful experience you will ever have. When you're in those hills of Colorado and those woods come alive, and then in the evening you're sitting there in campfire sharing that time. Maybe it's in a drop camp and it's a group of folks you don't know. Um, you'll never replace. Look at that. It happened again. You'll never replace that experience. Let's go. Let's do it. Gear's crazy, right, Bruce? We
Yeah,
have so many
yeah,
options, man.
yeah, it's nuts. But when you're thinking about getting out here, and I was fortunate, my company moved me out here and made me in charge. I had from the Canadian border north of Montana all the way down to New Mexico. So I could fly all these places. And what I did, I would stay out. I wouldn't come home for a weekend, and I would just hike and camp. I'm not hunting.
Hmm.
I got my fly rod or spinning rod, and I'm in the Big Belt Mountains of Montana, or I'm in Idaho in the Selway, or I'm in Wyoming near the thoroughfare. Some of the places I had to have a guide even to go fishing. But anyway, I'd get up in these areas, and then I'd figure out the areas, and then being who I was, I could go into a bar and talk to people or talk to an outfitter and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Or, and then you just go meet people. And, that's the biggest thing. And that becomes the journey because all of a sudden, the guy says, well, why don't you come elk hunting? Or, well, one, I don't have the money for a guide or blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. But you get to those areas. And so, I forgot about how I did it because a lot of times I was scouting, while I was working, and I was in those areas. I'd have, I could have a backpack. I didn't need much, to stay overnight. I get a rental car and, you get a motel or you put your hiking boots on and you go up and see what's there. And all of a sudden you start learning things and talking to people. And with the digital world we have now and message boards and all that, you can do pretty much the same thing, I think, if you're pretty astute. If you're pretty astute, and you're going to meet some great people. Hunting for Connections, there's 29,000 people spread across the country, and get on there, become a member, and people will help you. Like we talked about earlier, I heard about you from MTL, Michael T. Merrill in Utah. He said, you got to get Guy on your show. I said, okay. He said, he's gnarly. my type of guy. But it's in relationships, and that goes for anything, folks. But the hunting community is very small. If you ever go to ATA, you'll realize how small the hunting community is.
Yeah,
it's very, very, it's $1 billion industry, but it's very, very small. And it's everything built, the people that have been successful, it's been all built on relationships. And yeah, everybody's not going to be Jim Shockey, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or Cam Haines. That's okay.
Well, if you look at this community, I call it a community because to me that's truly what it is. And I think we have these weird kind of divides or lines in the sand that we draw, right? When it's camo or what bow I shoot or what rounds I'm shooting out my rifle. And then the biggest I see, and since we're talking about how do people from the Midwest or back east down south come out and hunt, I think part of that intimidation or not understanding or knowing it is one of those divides, right? And I've heard it before, Eastie, Westie, tree stand hunter, out west hunter, blah, blah, blah. But I think if you put all that down, you kill a line in the sand, we're all from the same demographic and we're a minute fraction of the population. Folks are willing to help. The majority of folks in our demographic in our community are more than willing to help anybody. Via whatever media, if it's Facebook, there's forums all over Instagram, folks, I see folks sharing information all the time. Hey, people may be a little standoffish or cautious. They may not give you their honey hole. They may want to vet you out a little bit, but reach out to folks. If there's somebody that you're following that you've interacted with, for me that matter, reach out. If I could help somebody, I'm going to help them. I want to see our demographic thrive, grow where we can, but really, really thrive and make an impact, so we can keep this thing going, man. Um, yeah, it's huge. But like Bruce said, you get on some media and start talking to folks.
Now, living in California, now how do you decide where you're going to hunt?
I throw a dart at the map, man.
All right. I don't.
So
Yeah,
I
every year, every winter, you got to, because I know what states I'm going to hunt whitetail in. I had turkey states. I was going to hunt 4 turkey states this year, and that didn't go anyplace. But for whitetails, I know where I'm going to hunt, and then I know I'm going to hunt Utah and Colorado for sure. And then I'm waiting because I think there's going to be a lot of leftover licenses. That's my thought.
oh yeah, this year I would
Or
agree with you.
licenses turned in because guys they've saved, and then all of a sudden I can't spend 2 grand. I can't spend a
Right.
grand.
Yeah,
And
especially with this situation that we're in right now, I would agree.
and so I'm kind of just going, okay, let's see how this works.
Yeah,
Um,
it should be interesting. As far as how I determine where I'm going to hunt, um, when we start talking about hearing, well, California for one is probably the most underrated state for hunting in the West, without a shadow of a doubt. But the opportunities for blacktail and mule deer here in California are absolutely phenomenal. We have one of, and you know what, I'm gonna have to look at the square mileage of that of our A zone. But you can go over the counter, non-res or resident in A zone, and I've taken some really good bucks out of it. You have an opportunity for pig, while you're hunting in a lot of that
is
A
that
zone.
is that Central California, Northern California?
So it's Southern California to Northern California for the most part. So to make it easy, kind of the northern LA County border, right at Ventura, almost all the way up to the Bay Area, from the coast all the way to the 5 freeway. So you're talking, I'm gonna call it just shy of a third of the state is
Yeah.
OTC, and then in a portion of that you have blacktail, and in a portion of that you have mule deer, and you have those areas that they're intertwined. Um, but with that season, you carry a pig tag, and you have opportunity in a lot of the area in A zone for pig. They're a little bit harder to hunt. They hang to a lot of private, but they're out there. It's great opportunity for me. So this will be my third season in this particular area. Um, I usually don't hang in an area. I won't hunt it more than a year. I'll hunt in an area. If it's a really good area, I'll skip the following year, and then I'll go back every other year. There's an area that I've been hunting. This will be my third season. There's a 4x5 in there. He's beautiful in velvet. He's been kicking my butt, and he's probably in a 5 to 6 year old range. And I got to get him. He's archery. I could shoot him with a rifle, but this guy has beat me on archery. So I had an opportunity with my rifle last year, and I didn't take him, because I got to beat him with my bow, or I'm gonna let somebody else get him, or old age or a cat will get him. But usually, man, I literally, me and my buddies would laugh because we would just, we'd sit back and where are we hunting? And, it could be, I've done it with a straw and a spitball, and shot a spitball at the map, and it hit a spot. And I said, well, that's where we're going this year, boys. And,
All right.
yeah, the beauty with that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is the experience. Um, it's actually getting out there and enjoying that experience and the hunt, and not caring or worrying about what quality or what class of deer is in there, how many animals are per square mile, and what's the buck to doe ratio. I just want to get out and get in the woods, get on the mountain. And the biggest thing I found is when I'm successful in those areas, like I showed you that little tiny shed earlier, when that 7 days, 8 days goes by, and that's the only thing you see, you'll appreciate that like he's a 200-inch deer, man. And yeah, it's something else. So I'll throw a dart, man. We've gone to the range, and we'll step back 120 yards, and we'll throw the map and aim the best we can in hopes that we hit that, and we'll just let one fly and hit it. And hey, boys, that's where we're going. It's random, and it doesn't even matter to me anymore, man. I just want to be out there chasing.
Well, you do have to put in for tags, and you have to follow that, right?
Yeah,
In the other states like Wyoming, you got to put in for tags, and Colorado, you know,
yeah.
a
So when
lot
we
of
start
areas no.
talking, yeah, when we start talking about out of state, and I was doing that for a while, right? Is I would put in for my points, and I'd build points here, build points there. Um, and it's great, but you got point creep and everything else that we're dealing with all the time. So it's getting harder and harder. Um, so now, I mean, with my out of state experience, it's really about the elk. So Wyoming and Colorado will say "owe me" because they beat me up the last 2 years pretty bad. Wyoming more so than Colorado. But as you know, as a non-resident, you're looking at 3 to 4 points, and you're in there unless you do the leftover draw, which gives you a 50-50 on it, which I missed last year. Um, Colorado is great with the OTC. They have some, wonderful opportunities. So, with the elk, it's more specific for me than it is with the deer. I can hunt, deer here. We got Catalina Island, 30 miles off the coast. I've been fortunate enough to hunt there a couple years. Um, Beautiful mule deer there, but the out of state, yeah, it takes a little bit more. I have to be a bit more discerning, and I will e-scout. Once I get my e-scout and pick out an area and firm up on that area, we'll make, the 18, 20-hour drive, to Colorado and check it out. Wyoming, I got 17 points here in California for elk. So this year I'll probably put in, instead of just buying a point, that 17 to 23 point range. I could, my percentage crept up, so I should get lucky here in the next, 2 or 3 years, I'm
Roosevelt
hoping.
or Thule.
No, no, I'm going Thule, man. It's the only place that they exist in the world. So that'll I can go to Oregon on the OTC rosy hunt, go up to Washington OTC for a rosy hunt. So it'll definitely be a Thule elk without a doubt.
Now, are they in the mountains? I don't know anything about Thule elk except they're in Northern California.
Yeah, well, they start just north of me here, in the Owens Valley, like the Bishop area. So you
Okay.
have them down in the flatlands and the grasslands there, and they do go up on the higher elevation in the mountains. And as you get further up north, you have them. Then you start talking about our coastal rosies. Then you got the Rockies, up in the mountains as well. So, but those Thule are just they're beautiful animals, man. And the fact that this is the only place that you can hunt them, yeah, it's got to be done. I'm just hoping to draw, man. I think this year though, with this whole coronavirus thing that we're going through, I think a lot of folks are going to be reluctant to put out for tags, especially high dollar tags with the uncertainty. So I'm hoping that somehow increases my chances.
I think, we talked about that a little bit, and I think, if you're listening to this will air in May, pay attention to the leftover tags this year. And the other thing is, what's going to happen is people, maybe Wyoming, it was January, you had to put in for a tag, and, everything's going fine, and all of a sudden, I don't have a job anymore. You call the outfitter and say, hey, I don't have a job, so can we move my deposit to next year? So I think
Hmm.
there's going to be a lot of opportunities. That's my thought on that. When you think about, hunting though, actually you were up, I know where you were on Divide Road and Unit 61 last year. This is Bruce Hutchin with a special message about my relationship with Burner.com. Burner HD is a non-lethal pistol that's available now on the web at Burner.com. If you go to the web and use my promo code LTD2020, you're going to get a 10% discount on all Burner product. So again, Let's Talk Deer has a discount, promo code LTD2020 for all Burner product. Go check them out. They're great. How do you figure out how are you going to hunt? Like you said, you just say, hey, I'm going to put a pin in the map and that's where we're going, and we're going to figure out from there. So, you've been at this game long enough to have some general idea of how you break down how are you going to hunt. So share that with the listeners.
So, man, I'm primarily a spot and stalk guy. That's just I hunt turkey, spot and stalk. Anything that I could chase is spot and stalk. Um, I, I guess the easiest way to describe it is what what and where is that animal going to be? When you start looking at, season openers, how many people are on that mountain? What's that animal going to do? Where is it going to feel the safest? Where are those areas that folks are going to have a hard time getting to? We start talking like, in that Unit 61 there, and that was one of the things. All right, guys, we got road access here, we got road access here, you got ATV trails over here. We need to get away from all that. Where are the animals going to go? I mean, we really have to study them enough to know, what they're eating, what they, where they're bedding. Is that all fell timber in there, that dark timber, and just really putting those puzzle pieces together. And then it just becomes a matter of, am I better than them? Um, the biggest tool, and I don't know if it's a tool, but in my bag of tricks or in my tool bag is the wind, is playing the wind. I don't know that there's anything more important in the woods. You can have a decent pair of boots, you can have a stellar backpack, but outside of accuracy and proficiency with our weapon, I think wind is paramount. And I pride myself in being able to, well, yeah, I pride myself. I'll say that again. I think my wind game is very, very good. I have put enough time in the woods to have a good understanding of how the thermals react. When thermals are less predictable, then it becomes a experience thing, right? Okay, these thermals are all over the place, or the wind's all over the place, excuse me. How do I approach this scenario? So I think playing the wind and understanding what the animal is looking for, and what type of pressure the animal is under, are huge factors in how I pursue the game. I like to glass, but I don't know. I'm kind of split in the middle, 50-50 between glassing and having my boots moving. I've come across more game, or excuse me, I've been more successful when my boots are moving than the glass has allowed me, because just because I spot that animal, a mile away, doesn't mean that I'm going to arrow that animal or rifle that animal. So I like my boot miles. I really enjoy my boot miles.
One thing for the Western hunter is that elk, talking about elk now, is elk need three things. They need food, they need cover, and they need water. Those are the three things. So I've been in a tree stand over a water hole in Colorado, and elk have come in. I've also been in a tree stand on a saddle in Colorado, arrowed a mule deer in a tree stand. Okay, you can do the same thing with ground blinds. So you have to learn, and this comes back to learning the area and learning exactly, okay, what are these elk are going to do? With Google Earth and everything we have electronically, I'm going to give a shout out for Go Hunt. If you're not a member of Go Hunt Insider, then you need to be, especially if you're going to hunt the West. There's no question about it. They do a great job. Chris Porter and the guys, and Brady Miller. If you follow social media at all, Brady Miller gets it done in a lot of various states, and he's a hard hunter, and he gets it done. So Go Hunt is a company of hunters, but they have research, and they have, they break each state down. And no, they're not going to tell you honey holes, but they're going to give you some semblance of saying, okay, here's a starting point. Okay, here's the dart in the map. Okay, do I want to hunt 14ers? Do I want to hunt above 10,000 feet, or do I want to hunt 7,500 to 8,500? What's the elevation? Do I want to hunt oak brush, dark timber? I want to hunt the plains. Colorado, you can get over-the-counter plains tags. Good luck finding a place to hunt. But eastern Colorado is ag land, and so you got to find a place to hunt. But there's elk out there, and you can get an over-the-counter tag, as many as you want, because the DOW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, says, we don't want elk out here. We want to keep the mule deer and the whitetails. But saying that, so elk need cover, food, and water. The same thing as whitetails need, only instead of 40 acres, it's 400 acres. And you just got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing. You just got to figure it out. And we already talked about this. No better way is to, pick an area and say, that's where we're going, and then learn that area and invest. When you were talking about before, going in an area, you hit an area, you invest in it. Either if you see the sign, if you see elk, if you're one of the 17% or 20%, I think the best areas in Colorado, they're just around 20% success ratio for an archer. That's the best.
That's really, really high too, right?
That's that's talking the best. So
Yeah.
everything else is between 15 to 20% of success rate, statewide. That's it with a bow. And that's with people like Guy and people like me and people like Cameron Haynes and blah, 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 blah. Pick a person that hunts the West and hunts Colorado, and some of them are successful, and some are going on private land, some are using outfitters, some going solo on public land, and it can get done. But the fact is, out of 100 people, 15 to 20 of them are going to be successful, period.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, considering, and then you consider the numbers that are out there, that 15 or 10 to 15, 20% becomes staggering when you realize that there was, I don't know, 6,000 tags. That's where the number really is the telltale. And I would agree, man, that Go Hunt Insider is a absolutely phenomenal tool. Harvest statistics, bull to cow ratios. You name it, it's on there. There's even
what it takes for points. What it takes for points.
Yeah.
If you're doing not over the counter, what it takes for points. But that's just one tool. And Eastman's has a tool that they just put up, and there's a lot of tools out there. I guess what Guy and I are saying, if you want to hunt, and East and West Bow Hunter, East and West podcast with Bo, he talked about it last year. He was on my show, and we talked about it at length. Anybody who wants to hunt out west can hunt out west. So give up your lattes and don't buy your new Ford, or don't buy any new gear. Matthews bow is $1,200. Don't buy a new Matthews bow, because the bow you have, folks, right now, and we're talking archery, not rifle, the bow you have right now to shoot a whitetail at 30 yards can shoot an elk at 50 yards.
Yes,
period.
Sir. Absolutely.
And don't worry about Ford Center, FOC, and all that stuff. Don't worry.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier.
Don't worry about it.
Just get out here and hunt. Get out here and hunt and learn it. And what's better than by failure or trial by fire. There's no better teacher for all the accessibilities we have, in scouting and things like Go Hunt. Those are all tools, but nothing is going to replace boots on the ground experience when it comes to hunting out west. That is the absolute best experience. I don't care how many people you reach out to. Boots on the ground is 110% better than all of that. Get out here and hunt. You won't regret it. And that's the thing, right? Because at the end of the day, when you don't do it, or you haven't done it and you put it off for 6-7 years, all you have after that first experience is looking back on those 5, 6, 7 years in regret of not doing it, and now you're hooked for life. It's
and
just
gas
get out
is
here.
the cheapest it's been forever.
Yeah.
There's someplace I know in Wisconsin, my buddy called me and said it was under $1. Here it's about $1.75 or something.
Yeah, we're still at what are we at?
Yeah, but you're a California. You're a
Yeah,
California. So
$3.50.
Whatever. We're not going to go there. This is not a political statement. We're not going to politicize our discussion this evening. I refuse to go there. There's going to be enough of that. Oh, one thing, folks, I want to mention, I am endorsing Burner HD. Burner HD is a pistol that shoots an LC and tear gas pellet or a plastic pellet over 300 feet per second, and it's a non-lethal deterrent. That's what it is. It's a non-lethal deterrent. And so go to burner.com and use promo code LTD 2020 if you want to buy a product. Thank you very much. So, last thoughts. we got 2020 coming up. We don't know what the hunting season is going to be, what's going to be open, what's going to be closed. We have no idea, but we have to make plans. So what are your plans for this fall?
So right now I'm looking at my resident tags here. It'll be over the counter archery. That archery season turns into rifle, but like I said, that buck he has to die by bow. I'll be putting in for my elk tag here, and then outside of that, I'll be back in Colorado, and then looks like I may end up in Oregon. I usually spend all of September in the woods somehow. So I usually like to go one place, but I have some buddies that want me to come up to Oregon and hunt over east with them. So I'm looking at doing that. And those are OTC as well. I want to go back to Wyoming, but Wyoming doesn't like me. So it looks like I'll just be getting a point for Wyoming this year, and hopefully I'll be back there next year and go take my vengeance out on Wyoming and Grizz country.
Well, that'll
So
be
hoping
fine. And we
yeah,
talked about over the counter in January, folks. If you don't know about it, it used to be the best kept secret in the hunting, but it isn't anymore. A lot of guys are going and shooting in January over the counter tags, walking to Walmart. No, you can't get the whole state. It's various units in various open and closed, but you can hunt mule deer or coos deer with the tag. And so it's a great January hunt. And I was supposed to go this year with Big Chino Outfitters, and because of my hip surgery, I didn't go. So maybe Guy and I and MTM and Cody and a couple other guys will head down there. And it's an easy hunt. Compared to the Rocky Mountains, it's an easy hunt.
yeah, and that's the thing with that Arizona hunt, right? I mean, you'd want to talk about diversity in terrain and the sites. I mean, you can be central to southern Arizona and be looking at desert moonscapes, and you start getting up in the Phoenix area and east and north of that, and you're in some beautiful some pine covered mountains there. So it's really great, man. And the fact that you can hunt muleys and coos deer on the same tag, that's a phenomenal opportunity and super cheap. I think it's right around $300, if that, for
Yeah.
non-resident for the
And you're
tag and the
rolling your
license.
own camp. I mean, you're
Hmm.
rolling your own camp.
Yeah,
And so,
and I don't know if you mind, Bruce, if I could step us
no,
back.
no, go ahead.
You
Go
had
ahead.
asked me something earlier about folks getting out here, and just as we're talking, I was thinking about it. Um, when you're looking out coming out west, you decide how you're going to hunt, right? Decide whether you're gonna pack camp or you're going to set up a base camp, and have the base camp experience or the pack camp experience. It's kind of a different set of requirements as far as gear and things like that go. But really look at it. If you're going to pack camp, and that's what a lot of us do is we live off of our backs for a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. That may not be the best option for a lot of folks coming out west. Um, it takes a lot of gear, and it takes some, how do I put that? Some level of knowledge of the area, right? Because you might be putting on 6-7 miles a day, deeper and deeper and deeper. So look at your options, right, and weigh that. Don't think that you have to do everything off your back, I guess is my point. Base camp is no problem. You can hunt out of a base camp, be within 3, 4, 5 miles of base camp, in and out every day. Just be prepared, right? Don't ever leave camp without your first aid kit and enough provisions to last you a day or so. Um, things to keep you safe and warm at night too, because our terrain and our weather can, it might be 70 degrees in the daytime, 30 degrees at night, and you get stuck out on the mountain somewhere. So really weigh the options of how you're going to pursue that Western hunt. Sorry, I didn't mean to step us back so far. It
No,
just
no,
dawned on me.
that's a great point. I was thinking about Arizona and the way I hunt an area, especially if I don't know specifically what drainage I'm going to, and is that going to take me horses or is it 5 miles up the trail? But
Right.
what I do is that I have a base camp. I set up a base camp, and I've never had a problem with anything ever getting stolen out of it. I've never had that problem. I've never lost anything at all. And then depending on what I'm doing, if I'm rolling the truck and then climbing, then the truck always has a spike camp in it. So I can stay out 3 to 5 days if I had to, because the truck is going to be a lot closer to base camp. Base camp might be 2, 3, 4, 5 miles away, and then my truck is a mile or two really where I want to get to. And unfortunately or fortunately, there's a lot of roads out west. Arizona, there's a lot of roads. New Mexico, a lot of roads. Nevada, a lot of roads. Okay, so you can get to places. So think about that. So, okay, you have a base camp with cots and your cook tent. You have, at least 2 tents, 2 guys per tent, and then you have a cook tent, and then everything you need for that. Then you throw your spike tent in your trucks. And I recommend, if you don't know the area, never been out here, Guy and I talked about solo hunting. Don't do it. Just until you're really comfortable, just don't do it. Always hunt with a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I hunted alone because I knew exactly where I was. The rancher knew where I was. They didn't see me every 2 or 3 days at the headquarters place, or if we didn't bump into each other, then I'd leave a note on my truck saying, hey, I'm going to be up this drainage, and I left at 6 a.m., I left at 4 a.m., and I expect to be out, by dark. And so, so you have to be smart. And
definitely.
You just got to be really smart with it. But you can do it. I mean, you can buy a good 3-season tent, 10 by 10 at Alps, a couple $100. You can buy a 2-man spike camp tent, and then get a jet boil and some filters and a pad and a sleeping bag, and always wear down. Don't come out here without down or synthetics. Forget, the things, the Army, the cotton. Do not bring a cotton sleeping bag out here. Please.
You will suffer.
You suffer bad.
Yeah.
And do it. That's my biggest thing. And folks, if all of a sudden you said, hey, I can pull this together this year, I'm going to grab a buddy, instead of thinking about all the crap and everything that's going on in our lives, there's no guarantee for tomorrow. And I know that when I flipped my truck in 2017, I coded, I should have been dead, but here I am, in 2020 talking with Guy. So I didn't die. Okay, but I should have died. I mean, I did die. My heart stopped. But you think about that and you go, dang, I wish I'd gone and got my kudu and Cape Buffalo. I really do. And looking back, my whole hunting experience, those are the 2 things that I missed. That I should have done it when I was working and making a couple of bucks, and I should have not gone on a sheep hunt or not gone on a elk hunt or not done this or done that, and budgeted. Maybe it takes me 3 years. Maybe it takes me 5 years. I don't know. But all of a sudden, you got the $10,000, which that's what it would have cost back then to do it. And you go, holy fright. But then I wouldn't look back and say, I never went to Africa. Regretting, that's my only hunting regret, because I wanted the kudu and I wanted the Cape Buffalo.
Yeah, see, mine is Barren Plain. Yeah, well, that's mine is Barren Plain archery caribou. I love to get a mountain caribou archery, but Barren Plain archery caribou, man, that just speaks to me.
That's like hunting antelope, because I've been there, and I have never taken a caribou with my bow, but we hunted. I went with another guy, because up there I didn't know the area, so we went with 2 of us, because it was a drop camp, and you just went out. And so I had another guy with me, and so one would carry a bow one day and one would carry a rifle, and then we flipped back and forth. That's what we did. He got one with his bow, and I didn't have an opportunity.
Yeah, every guy that I've talked to that I've been talking to about drop camp up there, I'm like, man, I want, it's archery for me. And they're like, dude, just bring a rifle just in case.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you got to back yourself up. And out of Slayfordville and areas, if you do your homework, the herds get pounded. Global warming or whatever, the herds aren't what they used to be.
Right.
and I've hunted the Mochatna herd, and then I Leaf River herd, and I hunted them when if you're in the right place at the right time, it's amazing. I mean, there's how many caribou, and you go, oh my goodness, when's the right one? You see the right one, then you shoot them, but you see hundreds, if not thousands, of caribou. And it's an experience I think everybody should have because it's like hunting antelope only in the tundra.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I'm
you're
looking
always wet.
forward to that.
Yeah, you
I'm
need to do that.
absolutely looking forward to it. Oh, I'm doing it, man. I was hoping to do it this year, but I had banked on Colorado, um, and coming back with some horns on the hood, so to speak. Um, I can't have too many vendettas in too many states. We'll just say
Yeah,
that. So
well,
I had to put I had to put caribou on the back burner, man, and get some of these paybacks.
all right. Well, do it. Well, thank you so much, Guy, for joining. I'm glad MTM told me to connect with you, and I just look. This isn't the last time we're going to talk. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, Bruce. I was humbled that you asked me to be on. I'm just a dude in his garage that loves hunting. So I appreciate the opportunity and
One
the
thing,
time
hey,
to be talking.
I remember we did this on Facebook Live, but how do people reach out to you? How do they listen to your podcast? How do they get a hold of you?
Um, Instagram, I'm pretty active. I try to post and stay relevant on Instagram as much as I can. So Instagram, it's at Western Contours. You can jump on westerncontours.com. Just throw it in the Google search and I should come up there. Um, as far as the podcast, on just about every major podcasting platform, um, type in Western Contours on iTunes, Spotify, and I should come up. If I don't, please DM me so I can see what's going on. But yeah, that's the primarily the platforms. I am on Facebook, although with Facebook I'm not as active. So if you are inclined to reach out to me for whatever reason, try and do that, either via the website and email or Instagram. Usually with Instagram, I'll answer within minutes if I can. So
All right. Well, this is the last time, and I look forward to sitting around the campfire with you, dude.
yes, sir. We'll have to definitely talk about Arizona. I'm definitely interested in being there with you in January. So let's plan on that for now. See what the coronavirus does to us.
Or doesn't.
Yeah.